Yo, an intriguing name this offseason is Naz Reid, mainly because he could be available. Could the Warriors actually bring him to the Bay Area with their current situation? And if they did, would it fix some problems? That's on today's show.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? Welcome into Locked On Warriors. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. You will get 50% off your first year. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly on 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That's the flagship radio station of your Golden State Warriors. Also cover the team on television. CBS News Bay Area, call letters KPIX. You can check out our show on YouTube, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, like, do all the things that support this show for free. We very much appreciate it. On today's episode, we're talking a whole bunch of Naz Reid, plus a scoring big like Naz, or a defensive, rim-protecting, athletic, that type of big. Defense, offense. We're breaking it down. All right, here he is, folks. Reoccurring guest, Evan Giddings, on the program today. First of all, Evan, I had to bust out and show my support for the other blue and gold, the people that stole. I guess the Warriors kind of stole the gold-blooded from the Pacers a long time ago. No one was paying attention to Indy doing it back in some of their Paul George years, whatever it may be. But got the Smits Miller 95 shirt on today. I figure we're going against the West in this one. I'd like to see Indy beat Oklahoma City. I don't know about you. I don't know how the vast majority of Dub Nation feels, but I'm going to go with Indy.
Well, you're looking good, Chuck. Looking slim, looking thin. Smits and Miller looks good on you. And, yeah, I think, look, who doesn't root for David against Goliath? That's what it kind of feels like. And I'm interested to see it come to fruition, because this is really like the first Midwest NBA Finals we've kind of had. Gosh, I mean, I can't remember, maybe sometime in the early 2000s, but I mean, this is really for hoop heads, this NBA Finals.
I'm going back and trying to think of when it would have been, because we got the South Beach thrown in there, nowhere near the Midwest. We got some Northeast from time to time when the New Jersey Nets with Kenyon Martin, Jason Kidd were in there. We got some Pistons Midwest, but they were playing the Lakers.
Like Milwaukee, Phoenix might be the closest you could get, but stretch.
Been a minute, man. Been a minute. All right, let's dive into this thing. Warriors are now linked to Naz Reid of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and this is per Bovada Sportsbook. They're the betting favorites to land Naz Reid. Now, this is the same site that came out with Michael Porter Jr. being a betting favorite to land with the Warriors if he were to be traded. So I don't know what a lot of this means. I didn't spend a ton of time on Michael Porter Jr. I will spend some time on Naz Reid, because it's very plausible that the Warriors could be interested. Brings a lot of attributes that I'd say Golden State would be interested in. A big that can stretch the floor, shoot at 38% from three, averages 14 and 6. A pretty versatile defender, especially on the perimeter, where he can guard some smaller players with his athleticism and his length. Not the greatest defender in the world, but was playable on a team that was really good defensively over the last few years in Minnesota. And it makes sense because he has a player option. He's currently making about $15 million. You would have to think he's going to opt out of that player option and test the market based on a text message, or I guess an Instagram thread that I saw where a troll was coming after him saying he's going to make no money. And Naz said, "You watch, I'm making $100 million, my man." He thinks he's worth more than he's being paid right now. I believe he's going to test the open market. Do you think Golden State would find a way to bring in Naz Reid, or is Bovada just throwing out anything?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, he's a free agent, and I do believe he's going to test the market, because, look, what most improved player a couple of years ago, sort of well-established, best sixth man or one of in the NBA. And now it's his turn at age 25, 26 to try and take a step into that starting lineup and more importantly for him, make starting caliber money. And I think the Warriors are a team that should be interested in Naz Reid, most definitely. They're a team that could use what he brings, which is size, youth, athleticism, shooting. And I think more importantly, Chuck, we've talked about this a couple times, like players that are in their primes, players that are at the peak of their careers as opposed to a little early or a little late and over the hill. So Naz Reid checks about every single box. And I think the Warriors would be wise to try and get in on that. The biggest question for me is the avenue with which they do that. Signing him outright as a free agent might be a little bit difficult if he's looking for $100 million, but the sign and trade path, perhaps through a Jonathan Kuminga, might be a little more plausible. But I think overall, if you're just gauging level of interest, like Naz Reid absolutely stands out to me as a far better fit than someone like Michael Porter Jr.
All right, so I had the chance to talk with Ben Beacon, and first of all, another reason this is relevant, sources are saying that Naz Reid is expected to opt out of his contract and enter free agency, and you would have to think that he would. Like, I don't need to hear sources saying that to think that he would test the waters. He's better than a $15 million player, in my opinion. So when he has the option to go out there and make some money, you make your money, man. But Ben Beacon of Locked On Wolves said this about Naz defensively, because let's not forget, the Warriors were the top defensive team in the NBA after Jimmy Butler's arrival last season. And I don't think they're going to try and shake this thing up to the point where they add in only guys that can play offense and can't contribute on that end of the floor defensively. But he said, hey, Naz is a bit of a roller coaster defensively. He's better as a switchable 4-5 than as a center and drop or trying to protect the rim. He's definitely not a traditional rim protector, doesn't have great feel in most pick and roll coverages, but because he's so long and athletic, he can be really good when switching onto perimeter players. Was fantastic in the Lakers series. He guarded LeBron and Luka some, did pretty well. Warriors series wasn't as good, really struggled with Kuminga. All that to say, he's played a lot for a really good defensive team over the last 2 years, so you can certainly have him as a key part of a good defense. That brings me to this point. When you're looking at bigs right now, based on what the Warriors need, do you want someone that can put the ball in the basket, or do you want someone that can protect the rim?
I think you need someone that can put the ball in the hole. I mean, they have too many players, especially at the sort of, forward or center position outside of Quentin Post, that can't really shoot the ball beyond 15, 10 feet, it seems. They just don't have players, Chuck, that spread the floor and demand attention. And while Naz Reid might not be the Draymond Green on the defensive end that everybody wants, he's still a serviceable shooter. And I'm looking at his numbers right now. From distance last year, 38%. Year before, 41%. Career 37.5% three-point shooter. That's what the Warriors need. And so while this summer, ideally, yes, you would love to get a two-way player. You'd love to get someone that checks every single box. Naz Reid, to me, addresses a large, I would say, deficiency in this team at a prime position, which is 6'8", 6'9", and he can shoot. They don't have any players that are 6 feet that can shoot on this team, not named Steph Curry or Quentin Post. So I think that Naz Reid, I would worry less about defense than it would what he brings to the offensive end. I don't know how you feel about him, but that's the way I would lean.
I've always been a big Naz guy. Played at LSU on, I think he was with like Trenton Watford, and it was right after Ben Simmons, but was on a good team with Will Wade.
Cam Thomas at all?
What's that?
Did he overlap with Cam Thomas?
I think Cam Thomas may have been the season after. Let's just look it up right now with that team, because they were good. I think they lost to Michigan State in the tournament right before that Michigan State team beat Zion Williamson and Duke to go to the Final Four.
I mean, that's another part of this too, right? Is Naz is a player with big game experience. I realize he's not a champion. I realize that he hasn't made it to an NBA Finals, but he's now been on a team that's been to 2 straight Western Conference Finals. He's played in big games in his college career. The Warriors, I think, also, in addition to having some veteran stars, they don't have enough players with that kind of battle-tested experience. And so Naz Reid would be able to come right in and know what he's getting into and what the team could expect out of him.
Yeah, he was on a team with Tremont Waters and Javonte Smart, who had those really short shorts, and Darius Days and a few other guys that got cups of coffee in the NBA, but not really too many big names. He was kind of the big name there for LSU, but I've liked him from day one. I mean, he looked like a grown man at 18 years old. Like the way that he looks now, he looked like that at 18. And I remember seeing him on the sidelines when I was covering a Kentucky game. And I'm like, dude, this guy looks like 10 years older than me, and I'm 10 years older than him. But he's good. He's good. He definitely would provide a punch offensively for the Dubs. And like Ben was saying, being a good perimeter defender and being able to guard some of the other team's best players, not a point of attack guy, but someone that can on switches hold his own out there, I think is crucial for the Dubs. It just comes down to what they're going to be valuing this offseason in a big. Is it someone that can score the basketball? Is it someone that can protect the rim? Because you're probably not going to get both unless you find a way to make some crazy trade that the Warriors just aren't going to make this offseason. So you kind of have to go with specialists. And that's what they've gone with a lot of their players, specifically Peyton and Looney and Buddy Hield, kind of the shooting specialist. Like it's give or take at this point for the Warriors. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And he's someone that I think could help out on the offensive end of the floor while blending in enough defensively to where he's not like a huge red flag a la Quentin Post out there, who was really unplayable on that side of the floor in the playoffs. Coming up, we put Evan on the hot seat, asked him who he'd take in the NBA draft. He didn't want to talk specific players, although he gave us some specific players. He wanted to talk prototypes and who the Warriors need. That's ahead. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop managing your money and start building wealth. Surprising insights are why I like it. I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter. I save more. I spend less. You'll love it. You also get easy collaboration to where you can manage your money with your partner smoother than ever. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Brought up a name, Maxime Moreno, who I'm sure you've seen at Stanford quite a bit.
Yeah, Stanford, honestly, well, you know the Bay Area, Chuck. College sports are a little difficult to get on the radar. I don't care. Like even St. Mary's is a perennial top 25 program. Doesn't really draw a whole lot of eyes. But tell me more about what you like of this kid from Stanford.
I like the fact that, and so many people have pointed to Quentin Post and that the Warriors have their big that does a lot of the same things as Reno. So why would you go with someone like Maxime? And my answer is just, I think they need to upgrade at that position. Like Quentin Post is nice for where you got him. I think he can carve out a role off the bench for this team. But I think if Quentin Post is your starting center come NBA playoffs, or a center that you're going to build around for the future, aside from someone that can mop up some minutes, I think you're somewhat in trouble. I just think he's limited. And then you watch what Maxime's able to do, an unreal pump fake. Like he will catch, pump, and go, and is just so good at attacking closeouts, can finish around the rim. He's pretty crafty, can pull up, can dribble, can finish with authority, can shoot the three ball, maybe not as good as Post, but he just has so much more in his bag than QP. And I looked at him as someone, if let's say he fell, which I don't think he's going to fall to 41, or if the Warriors were willing to trade up, because we know that Mike Dunleavy likes this prototype, a big that can shoot. Hence, you know, the Lowry marketing talks and then the QP drafting last year. And he's just a better Post. I think from day one, he'd be better. He adds to your future. He could play on the floor with Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, and name your shooting guard at that position. And then you can potentially either bring back Kuminga, or you can, in a sign and trade, bring in someone that's more of a guard slash wing player and not someone that's a big. And I think he could solve some problems. But I saw a lot of people saying, I love the take. I love that you're high on Maxime Moreno. I think he's great, but he's not going to be great as a Warrior.
Yeah, I mean, look, someone also that can get you 10 rebounds. Like he can rebound, he can step out and shoot. He's also a ready-made player. You know, he's 22 years old. And so
I think so.
Yeah, I think that sort of prototype is, I think, what fits what the Warriors are trying to do. You know, not just Quentin Post. Trace Jackson Davis was a 4-year player. Pajemski 1 year in college, but was clearly a little more ready-made for the NBA than a lot of the projects that were available. I think that fits also with what they're trying to establish, which is you have to be able to play with Curry, Butler, and to a lesser extent, but also Draymond Green. And the Warriors are trying to figure out, whether it's free agency or the draft, what are players that complement those three guys. And so Reynaud absolutely is someone that does that. And to our previous conversation, Naz Reid is also someone that does that, because neither of those guys really demand or need the ball. If you're looking at someone that's going to contribute offensively for the Warriors, to me, it's a player that is a pick and pop spacer, not necessarily a creator, which they do need, but that's the kind of player that they're looking for right now, especially considered some of the financial limitations they have.
So if you like Nas, I would have to think you'd like Reno as well. And to me, it's like, I think you could go up and get Reno with some of your 2029, 2030 draft picks if you wanted to make a swap, give someone a first round in the future, have them take your second, and then take their first. I think you have the ability to get someone like Reno, and money is not going to be an issue in that case, which is pretty important for the Warriors. I mean, best case scenario, you're getting someone that's ready-made that can develop into an even better player in a position of need, in my opinion, unless you think that Quentin Post is the future, which I haven't seen enough to say that. And in addition, he's super cheap. So gives you a little bit of everything you like in that regard. Naz Reid, to me, it's like, if he, let's say, is expecting 23, 25, even dare I say 30 million, something like that per season, how are you going to get it done? It becomes a lot more difficult. So that's kind of where I stand with it. In terms of what they would do with the 41st pick, you have your eyes set on anyone? Do you think they would trade up? Do you think they would, attach this pick potentially to a sign and trade if that were to come to fruition? What do you think they should be looking for with pick 41? Because I threw up this graphic, and I'll throw it up again for you, of players that they've hit on over the years in the second round. And I mean, Post and Santos, recency bias, we'll throw them on there. You got to go back to 2012 with Draymond to really find someone that's made an impact aside from that. Monte Ellis in 05 and Arenas in 01. Like, you're not finding a lot of second round players that have great careers, let alone that are great right away.
Yeah, the second round is obviously a crapshoot. You're basically gunning for the best player available there. But again, because of the amount of size that they've gotten the last couple of seasons, I do think that they're going to try and play for a little bit more of a safer, perhaps not more ball dominant player, but I would lean more towards a guard. I know they need size. I know they need wings. To me, the wings available in the 40s and the 50s are not going to be game changers, unless, of course, you run into a Draymond. But to me, like Chaz Lanier, that's also been someone that has absolutely been tabbed to the Warriors. And look, that guy can play. But the thing about Golden State now, it's like what they need is just simply young, ready-made shooters. And I just don't see a ton of those guys available at 41. And that's where again, it's like they were able to benefit from, I think, the league moving away from or towards traditional big men. Like Draymond Green was such a tweener that his stock fell as a 4-year player. I don't know really where those guys fit in this current draft class, Chuck. And so, Golden State's going to have to get creative, but I think they will keep the pick. I don't really see them trading up or allocating assets from the future to move up in this particular draft. I do think they keep the pick also because they're going to need some cheap talent on the back end of their roster.
If Walter Clayton Jr., the national champion, fell that far, would you take a look at him? I mean, another thing, I don't know if there's any relationship between the coaching staff and Todd Golden, but I mean, Golden was here for a while, basketball minds. You'd have to imagine that he at least has crossed paths with Dunleavy and company. And that's something to where, in the pre-draft process, give Golden a call, see what he thinks of his guy.
Yeah, Clayton, look, he's an electric player. He's also a volume shooter, though. And again, we're thinking about guys that can kind of plug and play, fit immediately around Steph. Someone I like, I don't know if he'd be available there. I've seen him around the second round, late first, but Tyrese Proctor out of Duke is like a 6'5", 40% 3-point shooter, someone who can initiate offense. Those are the kinds of guys that I think are going to be able to get minutes too. And not to say they're going to be impact rookie type players, but you need guys that you can put on the floor. And Proctor, I think he played 3 seasons at Duke. Might have an opportunity to fall that low. I think he was top 100 coming out of Australia. Like, that's where again, Chuck, I don't know if it's a particular player. To me, it's an archetype that they're looking for, and they've gone big back-to-back seasons. I don't think I don't see them dipping back into that well a third straight time.
My issue is I just think you still need to get better at that position. Like Trace, nice player. Quentin Post, nice player. But when you get to playoff time and you have two guys that are 25, I mean, they're still developing. They're going to get better with more reps, but they're older, more experienced young players at 25 years of age. If you're not playing them 25 minutes in every single playoff game, then it's like, what are we doing? We're not set at that position. Sure, you've attacked that position, but you figure it out until you get right. Like in football, if you're the Commanders or whatever, and you bring in your quarterback and you find out quickly that he's not your quarterback, you're going back to the well and you're taking your quarterback, or vice versa,
Yeah.
And I just don't think that the second round picks that the Warriors have made to kind of patch some holes do it for me personally. I think they're nice bench players, and if they want to go small again and have Draymond finishing games at your 5, go for it. But in my opinion, if you want to go for the best possible center in this draft that also checks off all the boxes that you're looking for in a player that's also in the Bay Area, send him on up on a trip, see how he does. Smart guy. I mean, he's a double major at Stanford, computer sciences and math. And I just think he's got a lot to his game that you like. And I would think that Mike Dunleavy is at least going to entertain that pick. But at the same time, how high do you even need to trade to get him? Because he's all over the board, is Reno. You've seen him as high as like 12 after a nice combine. You've seen him as low as I'm sure someone's mock board out there has him fallen as low as 40 to the Warriors. Maybe not that far, but late first round, early second round.
Well, someone who is currently playing in the NBA Finals, and this may not be a name that is going to wow you, but Thomas Bryant was the 42nd overall pick. And he was a journeyman, bounced around different teams, but he's playing big minutes for the Indiana Pacers right now. And that's an example of a player that, while he's not ready-made, going to step and be able to start, that's someone that is now to the extent where he's knocking on the door being a potential NBA champion. And obviously he's behind Miles Turner, who's a 10-year vet and a former lottery pick. But that kind of player, I guess, a Thomas Bryant, that's the kind of guy that I think you're eventually hoping to find. And I don't necessarily believe it's Quentin Post, because his game just isn't physical enough for me. But someone, I think that's what you're talking about, someone who can at least stay on the floor and just not be exposed the moment they get into a game where you're looking at him on the other end and saying, all right, we're going to hunt that guy every single time down until his coach either realizes that he has to take him out of the game or this kid fouls out. And so, again, there are examples of players right now in the playoffs who weren't those players at the beginning of their careers, but have sort of evolved into them around the same draft stock as the Warriors.
I'm excited, man. Big NBA draft guy. I get to watch all these, specifically get to watch the Big 12 players with the UC Bearcats podcast I do. And I guess one Big 12 guy that I'm keeping an eye out for is JT Toppin, because he may be there for the Warriors potentially. And he's a big that can stretch the floor and is athletic and can put the ball on the deck and likes the ball in his hands. I would have to see what really the red flags are on Toppin, because he was so dominant at the collegiate level, right? I mean, he took Texas Tech to nearly the Final Four.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have blown it against the Gators. I mean, they had the Gators. And for him to be falling late second round and potentially being there for the Warriors at 41 just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I would imagine there's something about his game, way too slow, that just doesn't stack up to the NBA. Maybe a little undersized for his projected position. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but what we do know is that there are players that can help in the second round. You go through any second round in NBA history and you'll find someone that right away stepped in and was good. it's the needle in the haystack, man. It's not easy.
No, no doubt. And I mean, even just like the college game is so different from the NBA now. I wonder how, for example, these NBA finals are going to influence the way the teams look at this upcoming draft class. It's a copycat league, and everyone's now going to be measuring themselves against, even if they don't win, which I think both of us would be surprised if they didn't. But OKC, that's still a team that has a ton of young talent, isn't going anywhere, has already taken the next step one way, shape, or form. And if they win the championship, is everyone going to be focused on how trying to, acquire just a massive amount of wings? Not that the center position isn't important, but their biggest pickup this offseason was Isaiah Hartenstein. They picked up a traditional center and they traded for a wing perimeter defender in Caruso. And they're basically killing you with defense and being able to run and play with pace. Same with Indiana, more of an offensively geared team. But does that mean teams are basically just going to try and play track meets in the next couple of seasons? The Warriors can't do that. But I just wonder how watching this upcoming NBA Finals is going to influence how teams try to construct their future rosters.
Good stuff. Evan Giddings, you can hear him on 95.7 The Game. When the Gales season starts, you can hear him as the voice of the St. Mary's Gales in Moraga, men's basketball on the radio. Appreciate you spending some time with us today, Evan.
Always.
As always, my man. Coming up on Locked On Warriors, we start our top 25 moments of the 2025 season. We begin with number 25, and we have to go all the way back to early in the regular season. That's coming up next. It's a new segment alert. It is the top 25 in 2025. Now, number 25 comes in the year 2024, but you get the point. This is a segment where during the slow months of the summer, we can kind of relive the past. We can throw the rod out and relive some of the better days from the Dubs 24-25 season that saw them lose in the second round of the playoffs to the Minnesota Timberwolves, all the way back to game number 1 for the 25th best moment, game, performance, whatever, of the season. It was 140 points against the Portland Trailblazers, second most points the Warriors scored all season long, which makes me wonder that starting lineup that Kerr threw out there of Curry, Draymond, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Trace Jackson-Davis that he gave up on very quickly and said it didn't work. It proved to be wrong in this game until I just remembered this was the bench game. 71 points off the bench, to be exact, for the Dubs. Buddy Hield led the way with 22. It was tied at 21 after the first quarter, and the bench mob went crazy for the Warriors. Did it a few games this year. I think the Bulls game, I think that was honorable mention. That did not make the top 25, where Post went off and the bench went for like 74 something. Honorable mention, that did not make it. But 71 points off the bench for Golden State. Moody went 5 for 11 with 15. D'Anthony Melton had 11. Buddy Hield had 5 threes. Flipped the game with 22. It was a big Andrew Wiggins game, who had 20. And there were still a lot of questions about Wiggs at that point in the regular season. Obviously, the 23-24 campaign was legit not a good season for Wiggins, to where you wondered if I did a lot of shows last offseason where it was like his legacy, like what type of player he will be, is if, this is still at the climax, and, nearing the peak, whatever, and not on its way down. And he bounced back completely and had a pretty good season, to where he's entering his 30s and still playing good basketball. But yeah, it was a nice game. Trace had 14. He was a perfect 5 for 5. Remember, he started off the season hitting like 10 straight shots, more than 10 straight, a couple games where Trace just could not miss, and was playing a big part to the beginning of the regular season. And this was just the good vibes continuing to roll on. The Warriors, a couple days prior, had gone for 28 threes. Would have been an NBA record, but it was in a preseason game against the Sacramento Kings. They ran the table in the preseason. They signed Moses Moody to a $13 million deal. Vibes were high. Players were pretty healthy. They had a ton of depth. Steve Kerr was running like 14 at that point. In fact, what was the exact number in this one? It was something, just 12 players more than 15 minutes in this game. 12 players more than 15. And Kerr did that for a little to start the season. They smothered the Blazers defensively, really proved what the identity would be of this team. As the Blazers shot under 40%, 23% from three, number 25 moment of the 2025 season, the 140-point season opening outburst against the Portland Trailblazers on the road. It was a nice night at the office, to say the least, for the Dubs. If you have a very strong opinion on something that should be in the mix, maybe I missed it. I went through the entire season, tallied things up, did my best to go 25 through 1, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to get down to 3, and I'm going to ask for your requests, because I'm going to do this every time. Say chat, hop in with some of the top 25 plays, and there's going to be like 2 that I missed that should not be 3 and 2, and instead should be like 17. And it's going to be tough. So we started off nice and easy. I think this is right where it needs to be. 140 points against Portland. Just starting off the season with good vibes, starting off this new segment with good vibes. All right, Chuck Walter here. Thanks to Evan Giddings, who came on the program today. Naz Reid, what you think? Leave it in the comments. We'll see you soon. It's Locked On Warriors. We're always free. We're always available. Where can you find us? YouTube, wherever you get your audio podcasts, and just search me and search the show. Peace.